Okay, good morning, people. Hope you're doing okay out there. Let's see who's here. Karen's here. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Pisa. Good morning, Miss Sheed and Casey and Jenna. Good morning. Morning, Sam. Good morning, Krish. Good morning, Haneen. Um, Glad you're all here today. Hope everyone's okay. Um, it's midweek. We're halfway through the week. We're halfway to Friday, which is close to Saturday, which is the weekend. Uh, oh, hi. Sorry, we have a visitor here. Hi. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hmm? Okay. Um, who else is here? Lily's here. Good morning. Good morning, Justin. So, um, for homework yesterday, I know that a bunch of you have sent me your homework, so thank you for that. That's great. I will look at that later today, and I'll provide you with some comments tomorrow. Um, so yeah, thank you for doing that, and I will look at it later today. Um, Today, what we'll do is talk a little bit about socialization. I had you read that section in the textbook and answer some questions, so I will ask you those questions, um, and then I have a film for you, and then so we'll watch that. Um, okay, so we've got 8 people here, which I guess that's what we'll work with. So um, let's hop in, okay? Um, so yesterday we were talking about socialization, right? And we said that this is a really important process for human beings um, in development, right? We don't know anything when we're born. We don't really know how to behave or take care of ourselves or protect ourselves, and our society teaches us those things. It teaches us everything we need to know to interact with the social environment around us, right? And we read the text yesterday and we talked about differences between values and beliefs, right? And we said that for the most part, values were things that people held to be good and bad, and they were kind of sometimes a little more abstract or a little more general, right? So, what does it mean to be a good person? How do we um, behave appropriately? What kinds of things should we do and should we want? And what kind of things should we not want and should we not do? Those are kind of values, right? Um, we said beliefs were a little bit different because beliefs were all about what people thought to be true, right? So, how they believe the universe to work, how they believe society to work. Those are all beliefs. Good morning, Erica, and good morning, Hassan. Um, the second question I asked you yesterday, and Caleb, good morning to you as well. Um, the other question I asked you yesterday was, how do societies encourage people to act according to cultural values? And we said that there was this system of rewards and punishments that kind of serve to keep people in line, okay? And so I tried to illustrate that by watching the Seinfeld clips yesterday. And as I mentioned, Seinfeld's really good at exploiting those little social rules, right? They get a character to break the rule and then they make humor out of it. And so we saw social norms being violated, like washing hands before cooking or after using the bathroom. We saw some dress code violations, right? We saw one woman wearing the same dress or the same type of dress every day. We saw a guy wearing a cape, and we saw a guy double dipping a chip, right? And so all of these characters in the show broke a social norm, they broke a social rule, and then people acted that way. On television show they acted that way for comedy reasons, but in real life we do this as well. We try to encourage people to follow the rules, right? And so you could imagine if you came into school, because we can't go into school now, but if you came into school just dressed in the latest fashions and you looked amazing and you walked in, people would reward you for that, right? They would say, wow, you look great, you look awesome, where did you get those shoes? They would reward you by paying attention to you and making you feel good, right? And so they would be kind of encouraging you to dress in a stylish fashion. But again, if you imagine if you wore the exact same thing every day, the exact same shirt, the exact same pants into school every day, people would start to question you, right? They would start to look at you a little strangely. They would say, "Why are you wearing the same thing all the time?" And so they would, in some ways, they would kind of punish you, right? They would kind of encourage you to follow the social rule of wearing some different things every day. They might even not talk to you at all, right? And that's a very common and useful thing humans do in order to negatively sanction someone. They just kind of keep their distance and they don't talk to them. Banamir's here. Good morning. Good morning, Banamir. So we saw that happen in Seinfeld, but it was kind of exaggerated and it was funny, or I hope it was funny anyway. I thought it was funny. Um, but those kinds of things happen in real life all the time. People will violate social rules, and people will punish them or will reward them for following the rule. And that's how we all kind of continue to socialize each other in day-to-day society. Okay. And then the last question I asked you were norms, and these are kind of instructions about how to behave. Okay, how we should do things. And so these are kind of more specific instructions usually. um, it's kind of like when you're in a certain situation, you should do this. And so, up until this COVID thing, when you met someone new, or even when you met someone you were acquainted with, often we shake hands with them, right? That's a common greeting. Or we might kind of give them a little hug or a little kind of kiss beside the cheek on each cheek. Depends on which society we come from, of course. The rules are a little bit different depending on where you are. Um, but those are all social norms, right? And again, if you violate the social norm, if you don't do the right thing, people will be confused, right? And they might treat you a little bit differently. Okay, so I asked you to read this section of the textbook here, and as you no doubt saw, there was a section on why socialization matters, why socialization is important. Um, and then there was a section on agents of socialization. So an agent is something or someone who produces a certain outcome. So an agent of socialization, although it sounds like a Marvel Agents of Shield thing, which would be really cool, but it's not that. It is uh, things that act to socialize us. Good morning, Duong. Um, so I asked you three questions here. Um, Maybe the first part of the text I'll just talk about really quickly here if I can. Um, that first part, 5.2, why socialization matters, that kind of reinforces what we've already talked about, right? The idea that um, socialization is a critical part of what it is to be human, and we really can't be human beings without it. We actually need this software downloaded into us in order to behave properly in society, right? There's a section in the text there about nature versus nurture. And so the idea of, if we have a person, are they that way because of their genetics, because of their sort of inborn personality? Or are they like that because of the society they live in? Have they been kind of trained to be that way? And I'm not sure that the textbook does a really good job of answering that. But I think with humans, the answer is that both. It's both. We're all born with a certain genetic code. We're all born kind of with a certain personality or inclination to a certain personality. But then, of course, we are born into a society that teaches us a particular culture. And so this would be a good experiment, actually, not that you could do it. But if you cloned someone and you took one clone and raised them in one country and one clone and raised them in another country, you would not wind up with exactly the same person, right? Because they would have been taught differently. They might have some similar characteristics in terms of their personality, but much of what we do is influenced by the society around us, right? Yeah, Krish. it's a mix. And usually with most complicated questions, and definitely with humans, if you're questioning whether it's nature or nurture, it's usually both, and sometimes it's another thing on top of that. Um, okay, so then we went on to social group agents, and so these are things that things that help to socialize us. Um, and so in the comment section there, maybe I could ask you to put up what is peer group socialization? What does that what does that mean to you? Peer group socialization. What's peer group socialization? I'll just give you a minute to put your answers into the live chat there. Okay, so Mashid says peer groups consist of people who are um, in the same age and social status. Yeah, so people who are kind of around us, right? Haneen says peer group is a social group made up of people who are similar in age and social status. Yeah, that's good. And Kiana says, yeah, peer group socialization. It's a group of people who share the same interests, and it's our first socialization experience aside from the family. Yeah, those are all good, and those are all exactly right. So our peer group, for someone to be a peer is almost like for someone to be an equal. Okay, and so these are, if you go to school, if you think about yourself in a school environment, people who are the same age as you, people who um, you kind of get along with. They might be your friends. Your friends can be peers, but other people around you who you just know can also be part of this peer group. Um, and of course, our peer group is an important element, an important agent of socialization as well, right? We said that our families are the first um, the first place in which we're socialized, right? When we're little children, our parents raise us and teach us all kinds of things. But then as we kind of enter school and we spend more time with friends and peers, we are socialized by them as well. And so my next question was, what do you think? Do you think that the peer group? So actually, let me just see what I wrote. Oh, do you think it's more powerful? Yeah. Do you think peer group socialization is more powerful than family socialization? What do you think? I do not know the answer to this. I'm just curious what you had to say. Erica says yes. Okay. Um, Neen says no. Also, tell me why, if you would. Because yes and no is easy to say, but I'm curious to know. So, is peer group socialization more powerful than family? So, Erica says yes. Neen says no. Sam says no. Karen says yes or no. Karen, you can't answer both. Come on, you got to pick one, or you got to explain it a little bit. Casey, same thing. Justin says yes. I wonder if this might also, the answer to this question, if you think that peer groups are more powerful agents of socialization than your family, maybe it also depends on your family or your peers as well, right? Casey says it exposes you to different situations and is a part of growing up. Yeah. So when you sort of step out of your family sphere, you're interacting with all kinds of other different people, right? You're getting all kinds of different social messages, and maybe that's important in your development, right? That's good. Chris says yes. Lisa says no. Mashid's explaining here that because it's a major step for adolescents to have a social experience besides their family. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. Baha says no. It's not literally more powerful, but it has a huge impact too. Yeah, I think that's I think that's right, Baha. There's even if it's not more powerful, it's definitely significant, right? There's a um, interacting with our friends is a very important part of our development, definitely. Um, if you had a weaker family bond, then peer groups would be stronger. That's definitely true, Karen. Yeah, it's definitely true. Not only do not only do children need to be socialized, but they also crave attachment, right? They crave belonging to something, and so if someone happens to come from a family where the attachment bonds are kind of weak, or the family is kind of struggling, um, people will reach out and try to attach to other people and other groups. Um, yeah, so that's very true. That's a good thought. Um, Chris says the generation now spends more time with their peers. That seems to be true as well. It seems that it seems that in many cases, peer groups are doing more socializing than families, and some experts would argue that that's not necessarily a good thing. Um, and he says, I think socialization is the most important agent because family gives us the first system of values. Yeah, yeah, that's an important thing too, Haneen, is that I guess family, as an agent of socialization, family has the benefit of being there first, right? They get to socialize you from when you're a little baby all the way until some of us, I guess, we go to school maybe at 5 or 6 years of age, give or take. And so we really don't have a peer group for the first 5 years. And so our families get to sort of build the foundation of that socialization when we're still at home, right? Family can help you more than peers, even though nowadays people stay with peers more than family. Yeah, that's true too, right? Is that our family sometimes will be um, more supportive of us, right? Because they're always our family, whether you like it or not. They remain people who are related to you remain related to you regardless. Um, but it's true. People, I think that seems to be the trend, is that younger people are attaching and being socialized more by their peer group than by their families. And again, some experts may argue that that's not the best situation, but that seems to be what's happening, right? Okay, that's all good stuff. So very quickly, what agents? Sorry, what did I say? What are the social institutions that help socialize people? So the text names, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them. Social institutions that work to socialize people. In part, they do other things too, but what are some of these social institutions? Uh, yeah, so school, education is a social institution, right? Um, Actually, I'm going to pop that up there. Oops. Yeah, so schools are a social institution, workplaces are a social institution, government is a social institution, the family is a social institution. Um, she says, yeah, workplace, religion is a social institution. The mass media, and so mass media is news, it is movies, it's television, it's music. Um, you might be able to include social media under this umbrella as well. You might be able to call social media a part of the mass media. Um, yeah, school, government, workplace. And so you may not have heard of the term social institution before, but if you think about, they're all kind of organs of society. And so if you imagine society as a human body, and all of these different social institutions are different organs in the body, and they kind of do different things, and they ensure that society continues to operate, continues to work, right? And so I think that's fairly easy for us to imagine that, that education has a function, right? It trains young people in the skills. Well, in theory, that's what we're supposed to be doing. training young people in the skills that they'll need to be successful in the workplace and in their life, right? Families are there to care for children, to raise children, and provide them with love and support throughout their life, right? The government is there to organize society, to create laws, formal norms, right? And to enforce those norms, right? So religion is there to sort of teach us how the world works, teach us about morality and ethics, teach us about things like what happens after we die and things like that. All of these different social institutions have a function, right? And they help society continue to operate. But they also socialize us, right? They also teach us certain values, certain beliefs, and certain norms, right? So those social institutions are all critically important. And one of the things I'll point out here, we'll come back to this a little bit later. One of the things I'll point out is that social institutions usually reproduce whatever inequality there is within a society. Okay, so the job of social institutions are to replicate society as it already is. Most social institutions are not trying to change society completely. Okay, sometimes they change a few things here and there, right? Think about your family. You were raised in a certain way, you were raised with certain values and beliefs, your parents treated you a certain way, and when you get a little bit older, if you choose to have children of your own, you will probably raise them in roughly the same way. I'm sure there's some things that you would change. I'm sure there's some things that you thought, oh gosh, I hated it when my parents did this, so I'll never do this with my kids. I'm going to do something else. There's a few things you'll change, but you'll probably raise them in a very similar way to how you were raised, right? And so families kind of reproduce themselves. Education, even though it changes over the years, it still reproduces society as it already is. And all of the other social institutions tend to do this as well. Okay, so I just thought I'd point that out. Interesting. Um, do you think your schooling in the past has had a hidden curriculum? And is that good or bad, and why? So the text describes a hidden curriculum as all of the things that we are teaching you in school, but we're not teaching you directly. Okay, and so in the textbook, I think um, they point out a number of things like how to sit still, how to interact with bureaucracy, how to read and write. Actually, no, that's not part of their hidden curriculum. What other things do they state here? I'm just going to refer to it. Um, oh yeah, a sense of competition and with the way grades are awarded, and how students are evaluated. Um, what do you think? Do you think there's been a hidden curriculum in your past schooling experiences? Do you think it's been there? And is that good or bad? Or good and bad for those of you who like to answer both? What do you think? Has there been a hidden curriculum? Have you been taught things indirectly in school? Okay, so Kiana or KC says, yes, I don't think it's a bad thing because it motivates students to do better and create strong relationships with each other. Also, practice students to prepare them for the future. Yeah, I think you're right there, Casey. If the hidden curriculum is constructed properly, it can motivate students, right? Because you if you can fail a course, then that might be motivation to work harder, right? Because you might not want to. And it also binds students together as well, right? If you're all kind of operating in this same environment and trying to learn how to navigate school, it can help students kind of bond together, right? What else? What else do you think? Hidden curriculum? Yes, no, good, bad, or otherwise? Either people are typing a lot or they're not sure. Um, Hidden curriculum is something that teachers and educational institutions do think about, or at least I think about. Um, I'm going to go to Baha here. He says, I think there's a hidden curriculum and it's good because if it was not like that, then some students would not accept it. Okay. Okay. Karen says, not really. Some curriculums teach false and rude notions. Yeah. So maybe one of the dangers of the hidden curriculum is that it's hidden, right? And so um, if people aren't really paying attention to what they're teaching, they might be teaching some negative things, right? And actually, Karen, that's where I was going to go with it. That's what I was going to say is that if there is a hidden curriculum there, you should teachers should know what it is, right? They should know what they're doing because again, you don't want to teach things that are sort of counterproductive or detrimental to people, right? And I have some of my own opinions on this, but I won't share them here. But I think it's at the very least it's a good idea to think about what the hidden curriculum is. So what lessons are being taught indirectly, right? Okay, that looks pretty good. So, socialization teaches us our cultural norms, right? And one of the things I want to point out here is that as we internalize these messages and behaviors and hidden curriculum, okay, I'm just going to press pause here and is it hidden for the students or the teachers? Sometimes both. Sometimes both. I think it's definitely hidden for the students because it's not really part of the lesson, right? We here, for instance, we're talking about socialization. I'm going to I'm going to teach you about critical thinking, but I'm not going to teach you how to, you know, behave in deference to authority or anything like that. I'm hoping you'll do what I say because I'm the teacher, and you know that's kind of how this works. But it's not something that I would directly teach you. It's kind of you learn it by accident, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I think it's definitely hidden for students, Baha. But if teachers don't kind of reflect on what they do and why they do things, then yeah, some of it can be hidden for teachers as well. Is it hidden for the teacher? Then how will they teach it? Well, that's an excellent question actually, and it has to do with the fact that actually it has to do with exactly what I'm talking about here is the idea that as we internalize certain social ideas, right? So we've already established that society has values and beliefs and norms for behavior, and we kind of absorb and download those things. We learn them. Sometimes we learn them directly, right? Sometimes people tell us this is what you do, and sometimes we learn them kind of indirectly. We learn them accidentally, right? We learn how far apart to stand when we talk to people. Nobody tells us directly, but we just kind of learn by watching how people move and react to us, right? And so we learn all of those things, but then we also behave as a result of all of those messages. And I haven't used this metaphor yet, but I'm going to. You can think of a lot of these social messages as operating like a computer virus or malware. And I don't mean I don't mean that they're bad, okay? So I'm not trying to say that about them, but I'm saying that they're if you imagine they're kind of programs that are running, but you don't know that they're running and you don't really know what they're doing unless you really think about why you're doing what you're doing and what you're feeling and what your thought process is. Unless you really reflect on it, you often won't know that those programs are there running all the time. And so teachers will often, anybody in society will often behave in ways based on those social messages, but often they don't really know that they're doing it. They don't know that they have learned this social norm or social value, and they don't really know that they're purposely trying to follow it. Right? It just kind of happens, and so yeah, teachers can teach a hidden curriculum without knowing about it because just like regular people, we're operating from our own programming, right? We're operating from our own software. And so we will, unless we think about it, we will teach the same lessons that we have already been taught socially. Um, that is okay. Okay, so that's good. But that's an important point. I wanted to say that think of social messages like malware or like computer viruses. And again, not because they're bad. They don't damage your they don't damage your computer. They don't damage your brain or anything. But again, they get downloaded. We don't really know where they came from. We didn't download them on purpose. They just kind of showed up on our machine and they kind of run in the background and we're not really aware of what they are or what they're doing, but they're there and they influence the performance of our computer, and just like they influence what we do, how we behave and how we think. Okay. um, so yeah, it's very true that people can even outside of a school context, people can and people do socialize each other and enforce social rules without really knowing that they're doing it. Okay, that part of that part sort of becomes a little bit instinctive for humans to do, is to try to get everybody to follow the rules. And sometimes we haven't even thought about what the rule is, we just enforce it. And again, that's part of what makes Seinfeld funny, is because they point out these social rules that nobody kind of considered, right? Nobody thought specifically that nobody gets up every morning wondering if they should wear a cape, right? You just get up and you don't wear a cape because wearing a cape outside is kind of ridiculous, at least in this society at this time, right? Nobody thinks about that, but Seinfeld puts it out there and shows you that it's a social rule that you've absorbed, even though you didn't really know it. Hopefully that made sense. I think it did, but yeah, that was a good question though, Baha. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, so this is exactly what this slide is about: is that we internalize these cultural and social messages, these values and norms of behavior, and then they become kind of a lens, kind of like your glasses that you see the world through. And so we pick up these messages without being aware that we have picked them up, and then we act on them, sometimes without knowing that we're acting on them either. And so again, they're very much like a computer program that kind of acts, that kind of is working in the background. Okay, that pretty much says the same thing. The other thing we should mention too is that the social messages that we absorb have a lot to do with our positionality. Okay, and so yes, if we grow up in different families, we will be socialized a little bit differently, right? Because every family, even within one country or one culture, every family is a little bit different, right? Every family is unique, but we'll also be socialized differently based on our social identities, right? So Think about gender. We don't socialize in any culture. We don't socialize boys and girls the same way, right? Boys are taught to be a certain way, girls are taught to be a certain way, right? Um, and so, whatever society you live in, your gender, your sexuality, your race or ethnicity, your religion, your economic class, your nationality, so whether you are a citizen or not, all of those will shape the, the programming that you receive. They will shape the socialization process for you. And so, again, you will, if you live in Canadian society, you will kind of absorb a common set of social messages just by living here. But if you grow up in an Indian family, let's say, so the parents were born in India and came to Canada and raised their children in Canada, those kids will get a slightly different socialization than kids that are born to white Canadian parents, for instance. There'll be a little bit of a difference in terms of what messages those children receive. And so they'll be socialized just a little bit differently. Um, and we could kind of go on in terms of gender or sexuality, but I think we've kind of made the point there. Okay, how about we take a little break? It's 9:02 right now. I think it's a good time for a break. So let's take 10 and we'll come back, and then I'll talk about the film I want to show you. Okay, so take 10 and I'll see you very shortly. Okay. Okay, good people. We are back. So here's what we'll do next. I've got a little film for us to watch. Okay. Um, there are some questions that I would like you to answer in the process of watching it, and I put those questions in Microsoft Teams in the Files section. And so if you go to Files a little bit later, you'll see the questions. They're in Word format. Hopefully that works for everyone. If it doesn't, let me know and I can just copy and paste them into a Teams message, or I can do something else. But that's what I did. I put a Word document into the Files section on Microsoft Teams, and you can see the questions. Now, the film we'll be watching here. Oh no, we're going to do that first. Hang on. Yeah, let's do that first, okay? Uh, Now I'm torn. I don't know what I want to do first. Don't know what I want to do first. Okay, let's do this thing first, okay? Because that's what's in my slides, so we'll do it. Okay? So I've got a little exercise for us to do, and here's what it is. I'm going to ask you some questions about these people. I'm going to ask you who's the smartest, who's the wealthiest, who's the most religious, and so on and so forth. And you'll tell me, okay? And all you have to go on are these pictures, okay? So these are pictures of some just kind of random people. I don't know who they are. I just pulled we pulled their pictures from the internet a little while ago, so I'm not really sure who they are, but they're real people of some kind. But I want to ask you questions about them, and so have a look here. There's 14 people. Everybody has a number, and so in the comments, let me know. First of all, who's the smartest? Give me a number. Who's the smartest person of these 14? You can just put your number into the comments there. Okay, so interesting. So Baha says 7. Seven's the smartest person here. Or maybe 1, 14, 1, 1, 1, 1, 6 or 10. 6 or 10. Oh, okay, interesting. 1 again, or 8 maybe. 8, okay. Number 1, all right. Now, why did you say what you said? Why is the person you picked? So people who thought number 1, let's start with that. People who thought number 1, why is number 1 the smartest person, do you think? What makes you think that? And this might be interesting because, of course, you just made a really quick snap judgment about who was the smartest person there. Why do you think so? What makes you think that person number 1 is the smartest person there? Okay, so so Baha says here because she's not wearing any fancy clothes, and that is attributions of a nerd. Okay, so she's not dressed super stylishly, maybe, or she's kind of Erica says the way she's dressed. Um, Sam says I don't know why, but she looks smart. Okay, Lily, I just guess so. Oh, you can tell by her eyes. That's interesting. What about her eyes looks intelligent, I wonder? Manish says she's dressed smart, she's younger, and it's a bit of guesswork. Yeah, so a couple things may be going on here, right? There's maybe something in her eyes, something in her expression that makes us think that she is intelligent or confident, and that's pretty tough to describe, right? That's difficult to understand why we think what we think. Yeah, maybe the way she's dressed, right? She's looks kind of casual, professional, but still kind of stylish. But she's not dressed overly fancy. Um, yeah, it's tricky to know, right? Um, I know um, there's some other answers here, but let me ask you another question about these people, okay? So, who's the wealthiest? So, which one of these people has the most money, do you think? Which person is the wealthiest? Which person has the most money? Lil says 14, 14. Okay, 14 it is. Why do you say 14? What makes you think that 14 is the one with the most money, the wealthiest one? Number 5. Okay, interesting. Ooh, he has the slithering expression. That's interesting. Okay. Because you know him? Okay, well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. Baha, who is he? I didn't realize he was, I didn't realize he was famous. Okay, give me a little bit more. If you didn't know, he looks like a sultan. Okay. What else? He's an Iraqi singer. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, he looks like he might come from Dubai. Yeah. Um, I have shown this picture before, and lots of students, lots of people choose 14 as the wealthiest person, right? And again, we see him as someone who looks like he's from Arabian Peninsula or the Middle East. We kind of associate that area of the world with a lot of oil money. And this guy looks pretty put together, right? He looks pretty stylish, um, looks pretty healthy. And so, yeah, we add all those things up and we think, yeah, he might be the wealthiest person here. Of course, now that I know that he's a pretty famous singer, he may actually be the most wealthy person there. Manish says number 5 looks like a model. Okay, that could be true. So people in the fashion industry might make a lot of money, and so he's a handsome fellow. So maybe he's a model. Um, Let me ask you this question. Because of his charisma, yeah, he does look very charismatic, right? He does look very confident. Let me ask you this question: who's the most religious? Who do you think is the most religious person here? Karen says 12. Okay. Baha says 12. Interesting. 12, okay. 12, all right. Oh, Casey says 9. Okay, 9. 12, 12. All right, and of course, you know my next question. Why do you think so? Why do you think 12 is the most religious person here? What makes you think so? Does the cat want to talk too? Okay. Baha says because, or 6 because he might be shouting at his daughter or son to go to church. Okay, I think you're reading too much into that, but it's good. Okay, Casey says elderly people are usually religious, right? That's often the case, right? Lisa says because of her face. You're gonna have to give me a little more than that so that I know where you're going. Karen says she might have been taking part in a traditional religious ceremony due to her makeup and outfit. Yeah, so her clothing and her makeup are really ornate, right? Really fancy, and so that might be associated with something religious, right? Justin says clothes. Haneen, yeah, the way she's dressed. Yeah, so often we might associate religious practice with certain types of clothing, right? And so here we have this young woman with lots of makeup and sort of a headdress and things like that. She's kind of dressed in a very ornate fashion, right? And so we might think of those things as religious. Now, it's an interesting cultural question. I don't know which culture she belongs, and so I don't know if what she's wearing is religiously themed or if it's just something else, if it's just sort of cultural fashion or whatever. I don't know, to be honest. But it's true. She might be the most religious person. Let me see. What else can I ask? Ooh, how about this one? Who's the most careful with money? Which person here is the most careful with money? Who's most careful with money? Mashid says 6. 6, 13. Okay. Number 1. All right. Interesting. Got a bit of a mix here. What else? What else do you think? Which person is the most careful with money? Casey says number 1. Justin says number 6. 2. 7. All right. 6. Interesting. Okay, so we've got some 6s, we've got some 1s, and a few others. For number 6, why did you choose number 6? Why do you think that they are the most careful with money? There's a 7, okay. 7's in the running too. Interesting. So number 6, why is he the most careful with money, do you think? So somebody's going to kill people. Okay, so he looks angry, and maybe if you touch his money, he'll get angry at you. because he's older, so people are careful about their money. Yeah, that could be true, right? He might be retired, he might not be working anymore, so he might have to be careful with his money. What else? There's a few number ones here. Why do? Oh wait. Baha says he's 13 is from Syria, and yeah, due to the war, um, yeah, you have to be careful with your money because of their Syria's political and economic situation, right? Yeah, because he has on his arm, his heart is in Syria or something like that. I think is what it says, right? Um, for seven, why did you people who chose seven? Why did you choose her? Why is she the most careful with money? Why is seven the most careful? So, Thesa and Erica, why did you choose? Why did you choose seven? Um, oh, she looks like an organized person who would keep track of her budget. Oh, okay, that's interesting. All right. Um, Let me ask you one more question. Last question. I have a bunch, but I'm just going to ask you a few. Oh, Manish says number two. Oh, yeah, I should have asked about number two. Thanks for jumping in on that, Manish. Two. Some people choose two as being most careful with their money because he looks like he is living on the street, right? He looks like he is homeless. And so, because he already might have less money since he's living on the streets, he might have to be more careful than others. Yeah, that's true, right? He might have to be more careful because he just doesn't have a lot of money. Um, Thesis says because she looks very careful and thoughtful. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, last one. Of these 14 people, who's most, excuse me, who is most likely to be put in charge? So if somebody is going to be made the boss of something, who's most likely to be made the boss here? Okay, boss is seven. All right. Four. Interesting. What else do you think? Who's most likely to be in charge? Who's most likely to be made the boss of something? One or 14. Okay. Number six. Okay. Number one, number 14, or three. I'd let her be my boss. She looks pretty cute, number three. Um, Number six, okay. And of course, my next question, why did you say what you said? Why did you choose the number that you chose? What makes you think that they would be most likely to be made to put in charge of something or to be made the boss of something? Um, so Karen chose number four, and because she seems confident and serious. Yeah, she definitely does, right? She's got this very kind of confident facial expression. She's a model, actually. I forget what her name is, but she probably works hard on that confident and serious facial expression, but okay. Um, why else? Erica says, Erica chose number 6, and Erica says, because he looks very strict and perhaps people would follow his instructions. Yeah, he looks like he's shouting instructions at us right now, right? Um, Casey says number 12 looks like a leader. Interesting. All right. Um, 1 and 14, they don't look too young or too old, and they look educated enough to be put up for being the boss. Okay, so something about the age of these two people and kind of their sophisticated look, right? They look sophisticated enough to be in charge. Baja says 7. 7 looks very natural and very intelligent. Okay. Haneen says number 1. She looks like a confident and successful person. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Um, so you might be asking yourself, I'm not sure if you're asking yourself, but you might ask yourself, why are we doing this? Right? Why are we looking at these random faces? Sam says 14, because he looks like he has an education, and 3 because she's too cute. She is too cute, that kid. She can be the boss of me anytime. But the question is this, right? I'm asking you these questions, these personal questions about these people. Who's smartest or wealthiest or most careful with their money or most likely to be a boss? And of course, we don't know, right? With the exception of number 14, who is famous, which is an accident. I didn't mean I didn't mean to put a famous person in here. But for the most part, we don't really know who these people are. Actually, I think number 4 is famous too. She's a model. I just don't remember her name. None of these people are particularly famous, as far as most of us know. But yet we're somehow making judgments about them anyway, right? How is this possible? How are we able to figure out things about these people, even though we have no idea who they are? Well, I'm trying to show you a few things. Number 1, I'm trying to show you that we've all internalized social messages about people. And we do know how to judge people based on how they look to us. And so it could be in their eyes, right? It could be their facial expression. It could be the way that they dress or the way that they kind of stand. And then it could be the social groups that they belong to, right? The older guy came up a couple times because of things that we know or we think we know about older people, right? We know, I'm going to put quotation marks around know. We know that older people might be more likely to be religious. Older people might be more likely to be retired and have to be careful with their money. The old guy in the picture there, he's kind of yelling, and so maybe we see him as a authority figure because he's clearly confident enough to yell at other people. So we've internalized all of these social messages, and it allows us to make determinations about people without really knowing them, right? And so I'm not really saying at this point that there's anything right or wrong with what we're doing. Obviously, the choices that we made were the choices that we made based on what we know. But my point here is that if we had not been socialized, we wouldn't be able to do this, right? If you hadn't absorbed social messages about what people are like, in terms of their facial expressions, in terms of the way they look at you, the way they dress, their age, their gender, their race or ethnicity. If we hadn't absorbed social messages about that, we never would have been able to do this, right? You would have looked at all of these and said, Mike, I don't know how to answer your question because I don't know anything about these people. And it's true, you really don't know anything about these people. But you have internalized enough social messages to make some guesses, right? You've been able to make some guesses about um, who is the smartest or who is the wealthiest, right? And again, lots of these social messages are kind of buried under the surface, right? And they operate like malware or viruses or something, because sometimes we just have a feeling, right? We just look at them and we're like, I just think that they're, I just think that they're this way, and I don't know why I know that. I just do, right? I just think that they look a certain way, right? And that's very common. And Lily, you kind of summed it up here when you said, yeah, I just guess so, right? And that's very, very common when we're dealing with social messaging, is that we have absorbed all of these beliefs and values and norms and social messages. And then we kind of just get a feeling about certain people or certain situations based on that. And we don't know why or how we know. Sometimes we can't really explain why we think what we do. But again, that's because these social messages have been absorbed and they kind of operate in the background, sometimes without our knowledge. Okay. Is that good? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense to you. Okay, Lily's all right. Eric is good. Baha's good, all right. Thumbs up from Rashid, good. 3 100s, woo! KC's good, Sam's good, Justin's good. Karen's good. Okay, so you can keep thumbs upping there, that's fine. Thesis good. All right, now what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to watch this film. We're going to watch Mean Girls, okay? Now, Hanine's good, awesome. Now, some of you may have seen this film before. Some of you may not have. My classes seem to enjoy it when we watch it, so hopefully it'll be fun to watch. But particularly when we're talking about socialization and how societies operate, and sort of social rules and values and the ways kind of social groups interact within society, Mean Girls is awesome for this. It's got all kinds of things going on that help to illustrate some of the things that we have talked about, and it'll illustrate some of the things that we will talk about. So it's a great film to watch, and it's kind of fun too. So what we'll do starting tomorrow, we'll watch this film, and again, I've got some questions for you to answer, and we can sort of discuss what we think is going on in this film. But it really works well for the things we're talking about, and so I think it's worth watching. And again, it's kind of fun. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty entertaining, even though it's not a movie that's kind of aimed at someone like me. It's still pretty watchable. And some of you, have you seen it before? You guys, have you seen this film before? Yes or no? And is it good in your opinion, or not so much? Baha's not seen it. Okay. Neen's not seen it. Okay. No. Lots of no's. Okay. I know it, but haven't watched it yet. Okay, that's good. Oh, Jarek's here. Jarek has seen it. Morning, Jarek. How's it going? Eric says no. Okay. All right. Well, if we've got lots of Karen's seen it and it's good. All right, you're gonna you're gonna see it again, Karen. Hopefully that's okay. Um, Justin says no. Okay, so this might be a new viewing for most of you. Sam says no. All right, awesome. Um, we'll start watching that tomorrow. Um, and again, I have some questions for you, but I think it'll be useful in the context of what we've been talking about here. Nuba says hi. Hi, Nuba. Um, for those of you who don't know, Jarek is just kind of crashing this class because he was in my classes last term and isn't this time, unfortunately. But hey, guys. Okay, so I think maybe that's where we'll end it for today. I will remind you that we're going to have a quick oral quiz on Friday. And so again, we'll do a Microsoft Teams meeting and I'll just have one person come in at a time and I'll ask you a question or two. You tell me what you know and then that's it. Should be a fairly easy thing, but don't forget to look over your kind of lecture notes or lecture slides beforehand. So we'll do that on Friday. Tomorrow we'll start watching the film and we'll start talking a little bit about that. But until then, yeah, I think that's all I have. Okay, so if you have any questions or concerns, you can always message me in Microsoft Teams. That's no problem. But until then, I'll see you, some of you in comparative cultures in 20 minutes or so, and the rest of you I'll see tomorrow. Okay, so thanks for coming to class today. It was fun, and yeah, I'll see you later. Okay, bye.